listening to those people in the previous segment, as I'm sitting in the green room waiting to come on, and the septum rings and all that, the railing against federal law enforcement, these are some of the people that are most dedicated to getting sex offenders arrested, putting them in prison, and then ultimately deporting them if they're not here legally, right? And in 2023, ICE arrested 4,390 sex offenders. It's a part of their job. That was the last year of Joe Biden. And nobody said a friggin' word because back then, shockingly, we all kind of agreed it's a bit of a bipartisan issue. We're going to protect kids who aren't political at all. Children deserve the protection of all adults, regardless of what side of the political aisle they're on, right? So in 2024, last year, first year of President Trump, ICE arrested 16,552 sex offenders. And that is their priority. They had a special operation in the state of Florida called Operation Dirtbag. And that's the federal law enforcement officials, the women and men that do that are critical to protecting our kids. And these people that think it's a good idea to block their cars, they have no idea who they're going after. They prioritize sex offenders and violent felons and gang members. But particularly given how many there are, these federal agents in ICE and other federal agencies prioritize sex offenders. And there should be no rational debate about that. So somebody that goes and drives their car. I wonder,
Matt, if they said, like, I wonder if Tom Homan came out and Kristi Noem and said, we're making an announcement. We are now, for the next 6 months, only targeting child sex offenders, only child sex molesters. What would they do? I mean, it would be a very interesting experiment to see whether the same, Karen Antifas would stay out there.
You know what? I think they probably would because these people are so crazy. I don't know if it's the septum rings that's making them mad because every time you look, it's like they got a ring hanging out of their nose.
It is related to being extremely homely. It is.
Maybe so. I don't know. But as a prosecutor, it is maddening to me because I know the work that ICE agents are doing as a sexual assault prosecutor. And same thing with the FBI. They devote a tremendous amount of resource to that. And the idea that somebody is blocking them, again, they think they're doing good. I think their motivations, I want to believe that they think they're doing the right thing, but they're so friggin' stupid because they don't understand what ICE is actually attempting to accomplish. And at the end, the people who benefit are their own children. It is maddening to me.
Yes, exactly. And I don't understand how a mother could get out there and try to stop these arrests of these molesters. All right, I want to keep going because I don't have that much time. I've got to ask you about Renee Good's wife. We played the video earlier of her antagonizing that cop, and now we know from his own camera on his iPhone that she was the one who said, "Drive, baby, drive." She told the wife to do it. And we also know that the two of them had been working together to train, to antagonize ICE. She was part of the perpendicular parking that Renee Good did earlier, we believe. So could there be charges against Renee Good's wife?
Yes, there could be charges against her wife, and not even for the aiding and abetting or the encouraging of driving forward. But she keeps being referred to as a protester, and from a purely legal breakdown. Okay, she comes from Colorado. I've read that she's a paid protester. I haven't seen the evidence on that or not. But when you get together with a group of people, including just one other person in your car, and you decide you're going to go out and you're going to impede federal agents attempting to arrest violent felons or sex offenders, that's a conspiracy. It's two or more people agreeing to go and commit a crime. And if it's federal agents and you cross state lines, it is a federal felony. It's a conspiracy to do that. So before we even get to what she was yelling in the car, that by itself is really problematic. Protesting, in my mind, is you're standing on a corner with a bullhorn, waving flags or signs that you've written with your Sharpie.
Wait a minute, though, Matt. I don't know if she crossed state lines. They lived in Colorado, then they moved to Canada after Trump was elected, according to the reports, and then moved to Minneapolis. I guess Canada wasn't all it's cracked up to be. Yeah. But does that change things? Wouldn't the feds have jurisdiction anyway because it was a federal officer?
They would absolutely have jurisdiction anyway. There's multiple theories to get there, and I don't know. And again, I haven't. I've only seen what the rest of us have, what's been released online. I haven't been able to read I don't think any real documents have been released yet. But here's another thing just to keep in mind. A lot of the analysis on this, I defend police officers now, Megyn. That's the bulk of my practice, as you know. And a lot of the discussion out there is what was this woman thinking when she was driving forward? What was she thinking? Certainly she wasn't trying to kill him. Legally, there's a case called Graham v. O'Connor. It's a 1989 U.S. Supreme Court case that talks about how we analyze use of force by police officers. And it is a seminal case in American jurisprudence. And essentially, it stands for the proposition that it must be viewed from the position of the police officer when he or she perceived the threat. Okay, did they reasonably perceive?
Is it subjective?
It's a mix.
Subjective.
It's a really
or
good
objective?
question. Only a lawyer would ask that. It is a mix of objective and subjective circumstances. Yes. Okay. And it is.
I remember that from criminal procedure.
That's right. It is.
Just explain to the audience what that means.
So it's known as it's the 20/20 hindsight rule. Colloquially, that's what this case is known. And that is, we don't pick apart the actions or thoughts of that particular police officer. You have to look at it objectively. What would a reasonable police officer in the shoes of that officer feel as far as perception of a threat? And she drove her car forward. I saw that, like, she actually hit him with her car. So it all boils down to any shooting of a mother is tragic, right? That is sad. But the legal analysis of that is, what would a reasonable police officer in the position of that federal agent feel as this woman, and that federal agent had personally been dragged by another car within the last year and severely injured, right?
Which would be relevant.
So it is, and it's a mix of that officer's individual experience, their fear of what's going on, along with the objective circumstances that the officer is faced with. And there was a great clip, I don't know if you saw this, the chief of Chicago PD, of all places, and I was kind of surprised, he went on a rant talking about how if you're blocking federal agents intentionally, that's how people get ambushed. Like any of your viewers who are ever in the military.
Great. We found out it was from October, but the point was totally well taken.
Right.
But there's another Supreme Court case that says it doesn't matter if the first bullet was justified, because cops are trained to shoot to kill. If they're firing their gun, they're trying to kill. There's no shooting in the leg nonsense like we see in the movies. But there's another Supreme Court precedent that says you don't start evaluating the second and the third bullet when they all come together like that. That's not, because there are a lot of people saying, oh, but the second shot and the third shot, Matt, are the reason to charge this guy.
Yeah, number one, that's exactly what the Supreme Court prohibits. Okay, that is hindsight 20/20. That's dissecting something in a rapidly evolving situation that person has to make split-second decisions for their own safety and the safety of other officers and the safety of other quote-unquote protesters too. So it's a split-second thing. And the next thought here, Megyn, is what's the end game? There's a thing known as officer-created jeopardy, which is something I've been dealing with on a case I have, a homicide case in Los Angeles County right now, where an innocent police officer has been charged with a homicide for shooting a gang member in 2018 because the guy high on meth, sitting in a stolen car, murder suspect in a separate case, all of a sudden reaches for what anybody would think was a sawed-off shotgun. Later, it turns out to be a BB gun. And BLM gets involved, and they took a principled stand. Jackie Lacey, who's a friend of mine, former DA of LA, took a principled stand, refused to file because he was innocent. George Gascon comes in, files that case. Now you got a guy who is a model police officer, #1 in his academy class, father of 2 kids, Little League coach, one of the best cops I've ever worked with in 33 years, and he gets charged with a homicide. Imagine this, for those circumstances. And I'm going to win it one way or another. We have a new DA, Nathan Hochman, who is solid. Okay, I'm hoping they're going to dismiss it. But what is the end game here? You've got the governor, you've got the mayor, all calling for this agent to be prosecuted with murder. And first of all, there's a whole procedure that they're going to have to survive in order to do that, where it's called a federal removal order. A federal judge gets to make the call of whether or not he was acting reasonably, essentially in conformity with his duties, which I think that's going to be tough for any prosecution to get around. But these people that keep talking, friggin' Tim Walz and all these people, we don't do mob justice in America, or we're not supposed to anyway. And the mayor who keeps blabbing, like, I think that they, at the very least, if they're ever successful in getting a murder prosecution against them, there's no way that's going to be in Minneapolis, and it's going to be in some other county, like we saw in Coburger, where they have to remove it from the local area. But it is, what's the next step? So do we just start prosecuting our cops? Is that the idea? So and so if we have a Democratic president who's trying to get sex offenders or Somalian fraudsters out of the country, then it's okay. But if it's a Republican that we don't like, then all of a sudden the same agents. And by the way,
thank God the feds have taken control of the investigation. A new year means new financial goals, like making sure your savings are secure and diversified. Will this be the year you decide to talk to someone from Birch Gold Group? They use an educational approach with a deep understanding of macroeconomics. There are forces pushing the dollar lower and gold higher, which is why they believe every American should own physical gold. So until January 30th, if you're a first-time gold buyer, Birch Gold is offering a rebate of up to $10,000 on qualifying purchases. To claim eligibility and start the process, you just text MK to the number 989898. Birch Gold can help you roll an existing IRA or 401k into an IRA in gold, and you are still eligible for a rebate of up to $10,000. Consider making right now your first time to buy gold and take advantage of a rebate up to $10,000 when you buy before January 30th. Text MK to the number 989898. Claim your eligibility today. Again, text MK to 989898. Thanks so much for watching. If you like what you just saw, hit the subscribe button for more clips and full episodes.